Hey, what's up, team? This is Eddie Gray. Welcome to Resources for the Modern Creative, where we help you become a better producer. We're looking at REV Intensity by Arturia. Some of you already know I actually just created a course for Arturia. This is through Mix Innovator. Go ahead and check out Mix Innovator when you get the chance. And I really thought this would complement that course, and so I really want to take a look at this digital algorithmic reverb. This is Arturia's fine attempt at creating something unique, taking from the lessons of the past, the coveted reverbs of the 80s, and making something special with today's technology. So let's get right into it. The way I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to play a sound source. It sounds really basic, like this. Okay. And so when we go ahead and turn on reverb intensity or rev intensity, we find out that this is a powerhouse of a reverb. Let's look at some of the basic dials. We have pre-delay, which allows us to basically create a little bit of space before the reverb comes in. So if you just play it as is, the sound source and the reverb play at the same time. Very cool. And let's say we wanted to sync that to your song. So at a rate of 120 BPM, let's say you wanted to pull off an eighth note. Well, listen to this. And so that, again, that creates that separation. Could be fantastic for snares. Could be great for all sorts of stuff. Let's move on. And I'll go ahead and just bring this so it has a very, very small pre-delay so that you can barely differentiate the sound source from the reverb. Yeah. So I'm not sure about you guys, but distance is one of those parameters that I've always had trouble hearing. The claim is that you're able to move the reverb further into the distance so that there is differentiation between the original sound source and the reverb. The only thing is, every time I've tried it, I haven't really heard it. So in my opinion, in order to really get a sense of what this is, you're going to need to set the pre-delay far away so you have distance between the original sound source and the reverb. Make sure you have a sizable room, and then set the wet dry all the way up. And when you do it like this, I feel like you actually get an audible effect. If you have any suggestions, hit us up in the comments. But let me go ahead and give you a pink noise source sound, and I think you'll hear it. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to increase it. So hopefully you caught that one. I think that's probably the most subtle of the bunch. I don't have any modulation sources. I don't know, maybe I should have a higher decay or a shorter decay. Let's try that just for fun. Let's try a long decay. Yeah, I think it sounds a little bit darker when we get into the distance parameter, when we go all the way over to its highest value at 1. So anyhow, just a little suggestion. Let's keep moving here. Let's keep it going. Size is basically going to create the room, the chamber, the hall. Since this is an algorithmic reverb, it's basically a utility tool that can create all manner of sizes. So let's hear what a bathroom would sound like if we just create a small room. Now, of course, that's going to work in relationship with decay. If you have a very long decay, that is going to influence the size. And if you have a small decay, you'll hear that it's not as prominent. So let's lift up the size but have no decay. So you can create so much with just this single reverb unit. I like how slick it is, and I haven't even mentioned the advanced controls that we see up here. So more to come on that. Let me go ahead and just reset all the dials so we're not hearing any of the influence within that generator. Something else to look at here is damping. So again, if I have a fairly big size with a medium decay, damping is basically going to soften the high-end frequencies. What we know about sound is that low-end travels farther. The high-end frequencies will quiet over time. And so you have the opportunity here to create a digital fake reverb that travels across time with all of that high-end sheen, or you can manufacture a natural sound and have the high-end dwindle over time and have that low-end kind of really stick out. So with no damping, we get all of the high-end to travel, right? As I increase damping, the high end has been attenuated and that low end is traveling. One of my favorite things about this reverb unit is the fact that I can control the reverb level. I've never really seen something like this. So if I want just the reverb to be quieter, check this out. Now that's different than a mix knob or a wet dry knob, which you can find up here. Why don't we go ahead and lift that up all the way so we can hear a fully verbed out sound. Sounds like this. All right, good. And then we'll back off so we can hear the original sound source and most of the reverb. Here we go. All right, cool. Let's lift up the reverb level. All right. All right, and then I'll back off damping so we get some of that high-end stuff. Here we go. All right. Okay, so width is only going to work with stereo sound sources. If you have a mono source, this isn't going to perform some voodoo magic and make it stereo. So if you insert this on a mono channel, it's basically not going to work. So if I bring this down, you'll find that the reverb just collapses down the middle. It's really amazing. Just kind of lands in that phantom center. And again, as I increase it, you'll hear it just expand. Now it's out to the side, down the middle. Yeah, good. Be sure you're listening with headphones so you can get that full translation. All right, we talked about the dry wet knob. If you want to lock your settings, you can do that here. Let's move into modulation. I'm going to go ahead and activate that. And here we are introducing a little bit of chorus and a little bit of delay. Bear in mind, this is all happening inside of the Reverb engine. There are other parameters around this mainframe, and we'll talk about those in a second, but all things size, distance, decay, pretty much everything we've talked about thus far is inside of the Reverb engine. So how can we get modulation to work? Well, it works with an LFO, and so the higher I have the rate and, of course, the depth, the more we're going to hear it. So this is without it. So you can see that it starts to take that reverb and modulate it at its core. So let's really exaggerate. Let's see what that sounds like. Let's increase the rate. So at 502 hertz, it's not spinning as fast, and so we're able to distinguish the sound. Further we go up, it starts to go really insane. I personally really like this, especially for cinematic music. You know, let's say you hit like a big impact or something, and you want it to feel uneasy at the end of the passage, as opposed to a pristine, right? It's just, it has a little bit more character there. So I'm going to bring this down. Decay we already talked about. We have a beautiful freeze function, which basically creates an infinite sound. Check it out. So even when I stop the performance, it just kind of keeps going on and on. So that's great for outros, transitions. Of course, you could then automate the volume or something like that. Okay, now we go into new territory. So check out this chart. We're starting to look at how they created this amazing plugin. So we have a feedback knob, which basically feeds into the signal, which of course will create some crazy sounds and maybe even a little bit of distortion as well. But then after that, we provide a soft clip should you basically need to control the sound. And then we have the width controller, which we already addressed. And then my favorite, the reverb level. So let's look at the feedback controller. So if you just add a little bit, okay, and you got to be really careful with that because, of course, the sound is continuing to loop into itself, but you can create some really distorted, really disturbing stuff, and also some really cool and interesting stuff. Let's say you're using a guitar with some delay or something like that. So that is that. Let's move on to soft clip. Okay, so soft clip is basically going to allow you to compensate for any gain loss after post filtering. Now, we haven't gotten into that yet because simply we haven't touched the advanced style, but we'll get there in a quick second. Before. Sounds sweet. And let's get it dirty. There you go. So again, you can use it in the context of post filter, but just as a character knob, it works well. Let's go into advanced. One of my favorite things about this reverb as well is that the UI is resizable. So let's bring this down to 160 or so. Yeah, that looks pretty great. All right. Now we really start to get into the unit and how powerful it can be. And really, it's a limitless tool. Reverb engine is the main frame. We have a PreFilter, which basically will allow you to work with the sound coming into the unit before it gets to the reverb engine. So let's go ahead and turn that on. You can either use a low pass, a high pass, a band pass. So let's see what a low pass sounds like. I'm going to start to shave off here. And this is the whole sound and the reverb. Okay, so you'll notice that when I have PreFilter enabled and I'm using a low pass or a high cut, as I bring this frequency knob down, it's basically going to cut off the whole signal. And that's because I have this set to a fully wet sound. So be careful how you use this because, of course, things can get out of hand. But let me go ahead and play this. And I'll start shaving off the entire sound, right? Because this comes before the reverb engine. So we're cutting both the sound source and the reverb. And now there's nothing left here. Now, of course, if I back off that wet, you'll start to hear a compromised signal. Okay, so we'll leave that as is. And let me back off here so we can get some of that reverb. Okay, so this is nice and subtle. We have the sound source and then a really warm sound in the back. This resonance knob is basically going to provide a bump in frequency around the cutoff point. In this case, let's just say 2700 hertz. Take a listen. And if I exaggerate, that's a really high notch there. And that's just a little bump. So again, without it, sounds dull. And then with it. So it's a nice way to really add some character to your pre-filter choice. Let's move to post-filter. And again, just reminding you that that comes right after the reverb engine. And then we can use soft clip to manipulate that. So post-filter is going to be controlling everything. And so I'm going to activate that. And then this time, I'll just use a high pass. So we're going to let all the highs pass through, but clean up some of that low end. We'll start off at 20 hertz, and let's see where that takes us. And here we have the same problem. If the wet is all the way up, we're not going to necessarily hear anything, so just be aware of that. Let's see if we can make this a little bit more manageable. So that's kind of nice, right? We cleaned up all that low end. Now we're just hearing those mids, and I'll add another resonance bump just to give it more character. Let me bring that down a bit. So let's say you felt like you compromised too much by way of volume. Again, that's where you have that soft clip here. I'll activate it, and let's bump this up a little bit. Okay, so here's before. A little quieter. Yeah, a little meaner. All right, good. Pre-filter, post-filter in relationship with soft clip. And my opinion, the main attraction today is the envelope follower and the function parameters. So much that can be accomplished here. Where do we start? Well, number one, we have a compression threshold right at the top. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to take in whatever the source is and basically stabilize it so we get a more consistent input for either a side chain or whatever the input is. So again, depending on the input source, it's going to take that information and make it really stable so that we can use it as a more reliable modulation source. I will go ahead and make this just super rock solid here as before. Look at the imagery here and you'll see what I mean. So remember that shape. If I compress this all the way, see it's a lot more stable there. It has rounded out the entire performance. Okay, let me go with a very high release. All right, the envelope follower, so great. We have parameters here to control the input source, but what we're going to do here is we're going to send the envelope to, let's say, the size of the room. Okay, now when we do that, we are going to either give this a positive or a negative value. So this is a bipolar knob, and so let me go ahead and increase it so it gets bigger. And check it out. Now remember, the release knob is going to be affecting that modulation. So if I have a short release, you're not going to hear the same effect. And so you can see that as this is playing, it's modulating just a little bit. Okay, again, let's go back to it. I will back off of the attack, give it a little bit of space, and let's increase that release so it happens over the course of a long time. So again, you create some really disturbing stuff. I love tension music, cinematic music. I really see this being quite important. So let's say I'm not getting enough signal in and I'm not able to really take advantage of the envelope follower. They have a gain knob here that I could increase. So default set to 0 sounds like this. And I'm getting a bit of the effect, but what if I wanted to go really aggressive? Check it out. Now I'm really starting to take advantage of the flexibility of the envelope follower. So that's one thing there. Let me back off of that gain. All right, I want to try and modulate the feedback. Let's see what happens here. So the connection will be made from here to there. Let's go positive value. Let's see what happens. We'll drop the attack. Let's back off. It's not really affecting it. I'm going to increase that gain knob I was telling you about. Yeah, this thing is absolutely nuts. Great plugin. Loving what's happening here. Looks like we also have a delay, which basically allows us to move the envelope follower just a bit. So if you don't want to start right away, for example, let's back off here. And it happens after the fact. All right, cool. Let me reset all of this simply by just double clicking what we have available with the function generator here. We've got some presets. Okay, so why don't we just start with that? Let's go with a pump. And then again, we have to set a modulation source. Why don't I try the post filter frequency and the post filter resonance? All right, so you see what's happening here with the function. Let's give this a positive value. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, I'll increase the resonance as well. All right, let's make this a little bit more exciting. So yeah, we're just adding another movement to the signal. Sounds really interesting. I bet if you do it all in conjunction, things can really get wacky. Let's check this out. You can hear, again, so much going on here. Why don't we try a couple presets to see what these sound designers are giving us by way of presets. There's got to be a ton in here. Yup. All right, let's go ahead and check those out. Here's Aftermath. And what's interesting, if you start to study these, you can kind of learn a lot more about what's happening in the background. So here, they are affecting the function rate. So you can see that this is connected to this. We've got feedback also working with a function generator as well as pre-delay, but that seems to be at a high value, so I'm not sure what that's doing. All right, let's listen to another auto-filtered. I like that. That's pretty cool. Next. So it looks like they have set us up to be able to also experiment. So if I increase the size of this over time, check this out. Now I'm moving over time. And bear in mind, you don't always have to like go full throttle. Sometimes you could just do something in a subtle way and create a nice modulation source that just really works. And again, you could just back off of that dry wet and have it sound really tasteful. Cool. Let's check out Canon in Verb. So you obviously know why that's happening. The pre-delay is set to a half note. Okay. And the signal is going from high to low end because of the damping connection here. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. So I wonder what decay is doing. It's adding more of the signal over time. So here's without it. Again, a really, really pro sound. If you're not really into sound design or it's just not your strong suit, this is a great way of kind of getting into it and learning a lot by way of the plugin. Not to mention that every single Arturia plugin comes with tutorials. If you click right here, you can then start to explore the effect. This is my favorite thing about Arturia. If I go into the presentation, it says, here's the introduction. This is a digital algorithmic reverb inspired by the classic reverbs of the 80s, so on and so forth. If I click here, they start talking more about it, advanced features, so on and so forth. And let's say you want to learn a little bit more about the advanced panel features. Now we can go into PreFilter, for example. It says this is positioned between the preamp and the reverb effect, designed very similar to the kind of multi-mode filter you might find in a synthesizer. So for those of us that are eager to learn in a clear and concise way, they really have done it here. There are no limits. You can certainly do what you want to do and get what you need to get. Yeah, I just wanted to introduce you to this amazing plugin. Give a shout out to Arturia. Let them know that we appreciate what they're up to. And if you guys need anything from me, go ahead and hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think about Rev Intensity. I think this is a next level reverberation unit, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, and I will catch you on the next video. Take good care. See ya.